Edible Spirit Hour.
Greetings, most delicious ones. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Edible Spirit Hour. This is a show that is for you, that is hopelessly dedicated to healing in the contemporary era, to healers and healing. And we bet, just maybe, that if you're watching, you've got some healing gifts too. We actually don't think that those gifts are exclusive to anyone. Anyone can be psychic, anyone can read a bitch, anyone can do the work and expand their consciousness and become aware of all sorts of things. But the question becomes why? It's our personal hunch that it is to refine and express and create a personal and collective experience that is more loving and supported by more loving actions. But we've been doing this for a minute now, so we're just going to dive right in. The first thing we like to do each week with you is called the F Me Update, where we bring you things that are effing us up. Let's see, we're going to share one thing with you. What do we got? So we mentioned a couple weeks ago, garlic butter, which we had been eating. Here's, let's see, yeah, there's some garlic butter that was made by at Lexington 75 on Instagram. Made that garlic butter. I believe theirs was vegan garlic butter. So we love that. That feels really good. And then we want to show you one other one that we have, which is made by the delicious Isabel Ivy. Look at that one. Ooh, baby. Ooh, it's a boomerang. Ooh, it's unctuous and savory and salty and spicy. In case you missed it the first time around. All you need in order to make this is a stick of room temperature butter, 2 cloves of finely grated garlic grated on a microplane, sea salt to taste, and some chopped herbs. Lex put in chives. I think Isabel had some parsley there. Isabel most definitely had some claws there. Those are on Etsy. Those are press-ons. Sorry, but we're going to get some. Nails, helpful, lovely, wonderful. Okay, but also, so we like to update you with some of the deliciousness that we've been eating, cooking, sharing, but also we like to use this moment to give you a little bit of an astro update. Okay, there's a lot going on in the skies these days. There's, but the most pressing and pertinent dates to share with you are, oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. The most important thing. Sorry. Maybe we'll show you this again later. But we found this place in Woodbury, New York. I think it's actually like called Central Valley, but Woodbury, New York. This place called Grand Mango Caribbean Restaurant.
Yes.
Sparse. Not a lot of people.
Yes.
Not a lot of people. What? Jerk. Deal. Jerk. Deal. As well as the the jerk. If you think the jerk is real, the oxtail is even realer. Oxtail is delicious with plantains and sauteed cabbage. We're a big fan of Jamaican and Caribbean food. Trying to get this off for you. Okay. So listen, so we're going to the astrology, but I also want to remind you, if you're watching now and you want a reading later on, or you want to ask our special guest tonight a question, I'm going to have a lot of questions for them, but you might have some questions for them too. You want to go to EdibleSpirit.com. You want to go there anyway, but go to EdibleSpirit.com and you can find the link to the Zoom room. You can also go to Instagram.com/EdibleSpirit. Check out the bio there. There's a link to the Zoom room. You got to go chill in the Zoom room until we get to that moment in the evening. 1-900-DELISH. That's 1-900-DEE-LISH. If you want a reading, because you are so delicious. That's why we're here, to affirm your inherent deliciousness at all times. but I digress. Okay, so the retrogrades that are happening. Mars has been retrograde in Aries since September 9th, and it will stay that way until November 13th. This is very palpable because Mars is an inner planet, right? It is has to do with our intimate moments in our life. I mean, we have all tend to have an intimate relationship with Mars because it's the planet of energy and passion and drive and yang and forward motion, and the impulse to whether you were assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth, it's the impulse to stick your dick into things, right? With consent, hopefully. But when Mars retrograde, with consent exclusively, but when Mars is retrograde, that forward moving fire that wants things and gets things done and wants to fuck shit up gets turned on us. And it can sometimes cause our fire to dim, but because it's in Aries, the lessons that Mars is trying to teach us about our energy and ourselves and our being and the way what we want and how we get what we want, it just tends to make more fire. So there's a lot of frustration, inflammation, irritation. We've been saying for weeks now, if you're not itchy, where are you at? Like, what's going on if you're not feeling itchy? The full moon, week or so ago, a little while ago, on the 1st, was also in Aries. So just a lot of fire in the air. And the theory here is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Mars is going to keep pushing on you. So make sure you're not just being a ram like Aries and charging ahead no matter what. Try to learn from what is causing you frustration. And it's very hard to tell a ram this, but like think before you push, right? And make sure that whatever you're fighting for is something that you really want in your heart, and ideally something that doesn't just benefit you, but that benefits others, if not all, okay? That's Mars retrograde. But even more importantly, well, not more importantly, but just as importantly, Mercury is retrograde from October 13th, that's later this week, until November 3rd, that's election day. Mercury being the planet of the mind. Mercury being the planet that rules our thought processes, communications, and connectivity. If Mars is the yang assigned male at birth planet, Mercury would be the trans planet. Mercury is the they, them of the zodiac. So, but it's also, you know, the mind. Well, your side, my side, and the truth. Mercury represents that, you know, in between space. But when it's retrograde, it tends to fuck with our heads and our travel plans and our connections. I mean, if you're traveling, you're going to want to be very safe and, you know, have lots of backup plans. That's a thing about Mercury retrograde. And with any retrograde, really, if you prepare for it and kind of have a sense of what to expect, then you're not going to be shocked when this thing that seems to come out of nowhere that ruins your life or ruins your communication or ruins your thought process, right? Tweaks it on its head. You'll be able to use that with a little more agency to create balance and sustain loving practice, loving choices, more loving choices, authentic choices, all of that stuff. So, like I said, Mercury retrograde also tends to have a little phenomena associated with it, sometimes before, but definitely at the end, around November 3rd, truth comes out that was hidden. Something that we didn't know comes out. Okay, so it's National Coming Out Day, International Coming Out Day. So we're going to talk about that hopefully a little more later. But this Mercury retrograde is in Scorpio. So what it's actually trying to do is to get your mind to turn in on itself and think about and face and engage that which is obscured, that which it's afraid of, or that which is in the shadows, that which is in the unconscious or the subconscious, in those liminal spaces. So we've been talking about this. Oh, we did an awesome stream live from Dynasty Typewriter in LA. They were streaming it live from Dynasty Typewriter with the ladies of So Retrograde. We think that's going to air somewhere around the 22nd in time for the full moon. The new moon that's later in the end of the month. But we're talking all about these retrograde planets even more in depth there. So follow the girls at So Retrograde. I think they're going to post it on their YouTube too. But if you follow them, you'll see it and you'll get more of this. But for now, to know that Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio, this planet of inner sensitivity, emotion, and facing the shadows until the 27th. And then it goes into Libra, it retrogrades back into Libra, which is the planet of justice and the fall and diplomacy and interpersonal relationships and all relationships, really. So it's going to take us on this journey of confronting our trash selves. She's a Scorpio. Scorpions, if they've evolved a little bit or done a little bit of work, tend to not be scared of their shit or their shadows. And when you can face those things, you can take these things that are weaknesses in the periphery that can become even pathologized if you ignore them for too long, integrate them and turn them into medicine and kind of thicken the skin of your heart and your spirit so that you can then be there with others, maybe even in a healing capacity, having been through the shit that you've been through and face the stuff that you faced, literally face the darkness that you faced. So now when someone says to you, oh my God, I'm going through this, you're like, oh my God, I went through that. I thought it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me, but this is what I did. And then I got through it and I kept going in order to create and sustain more loving choices and practices and actions in my life that are based on who I am as opposed to who I'm not. Okay. Yes, and then new moon in Libra is this coming Friday the 16th. We're going to post foodie scopes for you probably around about the 15th, day before the full moon. I'm sorry, day before the new moon in Libra. Yes. And then full moon in Taurus is on October 31st, Halloween. So there's going to be a big old full moon on Halloween. I'm sure we're going to do more fun stuff once we get there. You will get more foodie scopes. We are moving into a permanent space this coming week. So we're also going to be trying to bring you more food related content because we've been cooking every day. It's just been on the fly and there's no camera set up. So we haven't been able to bring you as much deliciousness, as much culinary deliciousness as we like, but we're working on it. And that will be there soon. But blue moon, 2 full moons in 1 month. That's pretty much what that means. Just intense energies. We'll talk about that more as we get to it. For now, yes, we're going to bring in our guest. The extraordinary and truly inspiring. This is a person that I love. It's a dude who has blown my mind on so many occasions. His handle on Instagram is at Photivational Speaker, F-A-U-X, Tivational _ speaker. If you're here, you know that by now. But if you're watching this for the first time, go check their stuff out. It's amazing. We're going to bring in David. Okay. And I see you all showing up in the Zoom room. Love you for that. We will get to you in a little bit. But for now, let's bring in David. Hey, hey, hey. How's it going? Let me make sure. Hang on 1 second. Hold on 1 sec. There we go. Hello, sir.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm great. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for being here today.
I'm honored. This is amazing. I'm very, very excited.
Well, so you know, there's so many reasons that I wanted to have you on this show. The main thing we're trying to do here is to get people to talk about healing, which is not necessarily the sexiest word. I am obsessed with the words that you use to talk about consciousness and spirituality and awakening, but I have like a little thing on my shoulder that I'm always trying to prove that when people are in their flow and speaking their truth and doing their thing, that it becomes healing for other people. It causes that presence to rise up in you and wake up. So I'm going to say healing a lot tonight, just because like, I just think it's amazing that you with your skills and your background and the things that you've done in your life, you know, have had a very healing effect on me. That's really why I brought you here today. So I'm going to keep saying healing, but you are very welcome to say anything else you like. And the first question we always ask our guests when they come on here is, how are you healing? Tell us about what you do to stay in flow, to stay in alignment, maybe even what that means to you. You know, share some of your personal practice, and then we'll get to the stuff that you do with others, okay?
Cool, yeah. So for me, I noticed sort of early on in sort of my sort of spiritual process that something that really resonated with me heavily was ritual. I know a lot of people say that, but you know, I think we all kind of have our own sort of mix of, you know, ups and downs, and we all have our own kind of cocktail. And for me, things like schedule and ritual, I find to be incredibly, incredibly powerful. So for me, right now, actually, I'm experiencing something really interesting, which is the sort of the transformation of these rituals, I would say, is something that I'm noticing, right? For a long time, I was incredibly rigid, like it was, you know, up at 4:30 a.m., 1 hour meditation. Go do your, I usually have a few things in the day that I like to do that are very sort of me. I live with my partner and she is not a morning person. So I take that as an opportunity to tidy up. Those are some mindful moments for me. Clean up dishes, coffee, things like that. A little bit of workout. Usually, you know, anywhere from like 3 to 5 miles a day. That's kind of my thing, or at least it had been. But what I'm noticing now, especially with COVID and, you know, all these other things, was I may have been kind of giving a little too much power to these rituals. So I'm allowing them to move and grow and change. And I'm finding, you know, today it's okay if I don't quite knock out 6 miles, you know, and I can just, if I feel like intuitively drawn to sort of just be with what's happening today. And I'm noticing that is also, I'm allowing that to also be the thing. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as personal sort of healing and stuff like that right now.
Very powerful. I want to, because I'm going to go into asking you a couple other questions, but I actually pulled this one of you. Yeah, I think is it this one? Oh, I thought I had the one about, I thought I had this one post of yours. No, we're going to come to that in a second. Where you were actually talking about the dishes, right? I love that.
Yeah.
And it's a great, you know, we just came out of Virgo season a little while ago, Virgo, Libra, and now we're going to be in Scorpio after this. And Virgo is the sign in the charts in the zodiac that represents those structures and those dynamic systems. But, you know, of course, we need enough structure. I did a reading too for someone earlier today where we were talking about how their chart had all of this depth and Scorpio in it and emotionality and passion and feeling. And we were talking about how they needed just enough structure to support the deep diving that is required of going in like that. And you know, I love this idea too, that everything can be the teacher, everything can be the meditation. And you know, the cheesy yoga way of saying it is like, when your practice goes off the mat, like it's great if you do vinyasa every day, but like if you're tense and screaming at the barista, you know, like, how's your yoga working? Like, how is that structure working for you? Maybe you need something that's yin. So, you know, something that's a little more flowy. So I love that. And I can kind of feel like where we're going to go with this conversation a little bit too, because, you know, too much rigidity impedes a flow. But how do you know when your teacher needs to change or when your structure needs to change? I mean, that doesn't have to be a rhetorical question. What was it that actually made you recognize that your practice was ready to become a little more malleable? Was it just COVID or was it anything else?
Not just COVID. I have sort of, I'm sure if you saw my chart, you'd be like, yeah, I have some structures. So a lot of the people in my life are incredibly grounded by nature. They're sort of very sort of, that's their energy. And I guess one of the things is I do a meeting with one of them once a week, and he's just one of the people who we kind of are going through a lot together. So one of the things he noticed that I was just like, I was getting really down on myself. I was just like, man, you know, I just couldn't get up today, man. I didn't get my run in. I didn't do this. I was blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, you know, first he asked me, well, it sounds like you're giving a lot of power to those things. And, you know, instead of kind of being with where you are. And he's like, what do you want to do today? Like, what do you want to do right now? How are you feeling right now? And I was like, I don't know. I want to kind of just go. I think that day I ended up literally, it's like, I just want to go sit outside. I just want to go sit outside. He's like, well, why don't you just go do that then? And I was Like, yeah, but you know, you have friends who can say that stuff to you, and a lot of the time, I think for me, I've always felt it's great to have a team, and I think I have a team that I really trust. That if I am a little like feeling not quite myself, that they know how to speak to me in a way where they can be like, hey, what are we doing? We can take this another direction. But yeah, and just also just being mindful of my body. I was at least mindful enough to know I don't like the way this feels, and to reach out for help. And also kind of knowing that I can be a little, don't reach out for help, and being open to being like, hey, I'm a little lost. So.
Do I remember correctly that a mutual friend of ours was telling me you have a sports background that you
I do, yeah. I do.
That's what I thought. I mean, it makes sense. So you have a history of training your body intensively. Yeah, fair to say.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So, and then I also know you do work as an actor, and you do improv stuff too, right?
Yep.
So all of this very physical stuff, you know, I think it's a great example of like, there's a certain place in the body where when you get to the depths of the body, and if you listen to it, the body will tell you exactly what it needs. It will tell you, will start to send signals that you're out of balance, or that you need to switch it up or something. I mean, you even see it in terms of like, I don't know the term of it, but like the kind of workout routine where you switch it up very consistently to like trick your body into getting stronger, right? And okay, so I just want to, just because we're talking about all this stuff, but I just want to show everyone how amazing you are, and just share one little thing here. Okay, this one is this one's about competition, so I'm going to share this one because I really like this one. Let's see. Okay, let's see, are we sharing this one? Okay, great. Hold on, we're going to just get this one going.
All right, so I'm gonna tell y'all a funny story about why you should never compare yourself to other people. I run almost every day. On one of my runs, I happen to catch out the corner of my eye this very, to be honest, kind of small girl starting to catch up. And for some reason, this wave of toxic masculinity took me over, and I was just like, not today. In about 2 blocks, I realized that this was a terrible idea. She's in complete beast mode. I am struggling to even just exist. So I speed up as fast as I can, cut down an alley, and just kind of hide so I can catch my breath. Comparing yourself to other people is exactly the same as this. If you're trying to outrun somebody behind you or catch somebody in front of you, you don't know where their workout started, where they're going, how long they're running. They may be at the end of their workout. They may have just started. But because you'd rather run up on them than towards your goals, now you're over in the corner looking pretty sad. And because I continue to run, it is a lesson that I am lucky to constantly be reminded of. But I know you don't need a reminder because you know yourself. All right, so I'm gonna tell y'all a funny story.
Okay. So that's amazing. I'm obsessed with that. I mean, I love it. We're talking about running too, you know, and competition. Okay, wait, just bear with me one more, just because I love this one so much. I'll save the Psalm for later because you do this interpretation of Psalm 23, which is really incredible. But I just want to show the just the tone of this business. Hold on, here we go. Okay.
Yo, what are you doing? Avoiding my responsibilities because I'm afraid that every time I've done that in the past, it's resulted in some sort of physical, emotional, and spiritual overwhelm in which I become some sort of narcissistic tyrant who uses a perceived intellect in order to feel secure in the chaos that I've created. Don't forget to be kind to yourself. Oh yeah, I forgot that. Yo, what are you doing? Avoiding my responsibilities because I'm afraid of being uncomfortable despite knowing that.
Okay. So
That's real.
I mean, man, it's just so amazing. It because I never know where you're going with these things. I never know what's going to tip you off. And I just love the way that you take us to these hard truths, just really present, awake, aware truths that come out. I'm getting bumps all over from that come out of these daily situations, these things that, you know, we're on the Edible Spirit Hour, right? I grew up in the restaurant business. So it's like, these dichotomies, these polarities, but that when you reveal the polarities and you seek the truth inside of them, it ends up, like I said, it's very healing to me because it lifts me up and out of whatever I thought I was sitting in or stuck in or trapped in, and just gets me to turn the lens and see something bigger. So I want to ask you today, just because it is National Coming Out Day, and a teacher I had many years ago was a fierce lesbian who was like, spirit coming out spiritually is the same thing as coming out as queer, coming out as this or that. So are you out? When did you come out? When did you realize?
Spiritually, yeah. That's a really, I love that kind of makes you want to cry. Yeah, I like that. Spiritually, yeah, for me, I think I had one of those interesting awakenings that was the ones that like look romantic because it's like, oh, you know, it seemed like there was a lot of information at once. You must have loved that. It was like, no, that I needed to really seek a lot of help. And so as far as coming out spiritually for me, it was sort of, I like to say I went through the phase of wanting to earbeat everybody with my belief systems quickly. But during that time, I noticed that it was more so from a place of excitement. You know, I'm in LA, so it's like you have this sort of awakening spiritual stuff, and you're like, oh, I want to, you know, talk to everybody about it, like a puppy. And I was noticing in my personal life, it was just like I was looking for any excuse. Like people would be like, lavender. Oh, let me talk to you about lavender. And it's like, chill. Like I just said you know. So coming out spiritually for me was in the form of Instagram. I think maybe a little over a year ago, and it was just like I needed. Initially, it was just I always was kind of in this sort of zone of like I want to just share these ideas with people. I don't want people to deal with the things that I was like, because I felt like I was a little flailing in the dark, and I wasn't even aware that I was having a spiritual awakening at the time, like I think a lot of people are. And I wanted to kind of provide that sort of for people, but I was doing it in my personal life constantly, just being the worst, to be honest. That's a joke.
No, but I think I just for everybody who's listening too, I think this is very textbook what David's talking about here, which is that you have a sort of peak experience or awakening phenomena. Some people experience this through psychedelics, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people experience a peak state of awareness where suddenly you're minding your own business and you begin to just suddenly truly be aware of or understand connections or synchronicities or truths. Or sometimes it can be very depressing because you realize that like 3/4 of your existence is a lie and only 1/4 of it is true. There's also a weird phenomena of a separation anxiety in a weird way, because when people wake up in a really intense way, there's this idea of supreme loneliness, right? That when you are aligned with the creator, or when you have yourself, an awareness of yourself as being connected to creation or the creator, or of being one with all things, there's fucking nobody else around, because you're just the one of you. So it can have all sorts of weird ramifications. And then this typically gets followed by a I know everything moment.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to share everything. I'm going to talk. And I figured it out. But these truths that we're talking about have been, are, and always will be. And it's all the rest of this stuff that's phenomenological. So that's why they say a lot of teachers, the best teachers, teach through silence, right? And through radiation, and through just being that truth instead of talking about that truth. But then part of my philosophy is that, you know, you begin to understand yourself and your purpose. And I love that about your posts. You're always reminding us to know yourself. Know yourself. Everything you need is within you. Everything you need to understand is within you. And through that, you can understand everything else, you know, and then we begin to find a kind of balance. But I just want to be clear, just because we did have that beautiful exchange about coming out, it's like, a year ago is not very long, man, to be putting this stuff on the interwebs.
Yeah, it seems a lot longer to me, but for me it was I noticed what I did notice about myself in that inward exploration was, well, first it was all external, right? It was like all the stuff, and then I'm gonna go external. But I just had this awareness, and thank God to my partner. She really is always kind of turning it back, and it was literally just the second I did this and like turned it inward. Oh, and one thing that I did notice is like, I've been talking forever. I think I started speaking complete sentences about 6 to 8 months or earlier than most children say their first words. Yeah. So it's always been, all my charts, all my readings have been like, you're a speaker, you speak. Knowing that and then taking that and just being like, hey, here are my ideas on Instagram, online, gave that space so that so now it's take it or leave it. Everybody take it or leave it.
I love that. And it's really, I have, 4 planets in Scorpio in the 3rd house. So I didn't understand that for a long time. And they're all conjunct one another, 4 planets all on top of each other. And it's Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, right? All stacked on top of each other, 3rd house Scorpio. And I'm like, I came up with teachers, yoga teachers, meditation teachers, always being like, certain things you just don't talk about. And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
So once I was looking at all this stuff, I was like, wow, I'm blessed and cursed with this desire to talk about things that are supposed to be left unsaid. So I was reading one of the things from one of your teachers that you told me about, Mr. 2020. Is that the yes? Yeah. So cool. So I was getting into some of the Neville Goddard stuff, and I was Neville Goddard. So this person, Mr. 2020, teaches Neville Goddard. But there was one little quote that I saw was about how the consciousness of children is the perfect blend of innocence, curiosity, and rampant narcissism, which tends to also be what you find in spiritual teachers. Right?
That's a bar.
You got to check that stuff. But
yeah.
I love that. What I was going to ask you next was, tell me then a little more. I know you're starting a Discord space, right? And working on that. Tell me a little bit about the relationship between tech and awakening, and how, I believe we can consecrate these airwaves and these technologies with light and with truth. So maybe you can speak a little bit about the relationship between tech and awakening and all that.
Yeah, I think tech and awakening is hand in hand. For me, I have this sort of ongoing theory that we're sort of, through the internet, is like our artificial divine feminine connection to everything. We created this sort of, that divine feminine connection to all kind of knowing and knowledge and stuff. We artificially kind of want to make one, or made one, so that now all this sort of information that's out there is really sort of accessible in a really real way for people. And you notice that, like a lot of these mystery schools and stuff, I will say, just like everything, there's like helpful and harmful aspects to it. I think that's something to be mindful of. But I'll tell you what, with how I understand consciousness to behave, I've been on a certain Instagram, I've been on your stuff, I've seen your stuff and just been healed, like through, and there's still that kind of, me being as strange as I am, I still will scroll past an Instagram video and someone, or a TikTok, and somebody be like, all right, guys, I'm gonna go in deep and we're gonna feel something here. And I'm like, all right, yeah. I swear, I shouldn't be doubting it as much as I do, but I still do, and I'm still caught off guard. There's a guy on TikTok, I cannot remember his name to save my life, and he does these energy workings with these like garden tools, and it just, every time it's just like, yo, like there's no limit to this thing. And I think that's something that I'm really noticing in the tech space is really
beautiful.
It's becoming massively inclusive.
I realized, when I was coming up as a baby psychic in the city and in LA, I would work with skeptics. I would get a lot of people that would come to me because their lady would read with me, and they'd be like, I need to send you my man now. And this one person that I was working with wanted nothing. I work as a channel too, clairaudiently. I just start sending the words that come out. Wanted nothing to do with me. And then all of a sudden I started speaking in baseball metaphors, right? Like, I don't know shit about baseball, but like the whole reading came through in a baseball metaphor. Whereas like someone I was working with on a phone call 2 weeks prior, the whole reading was through the vernacular of Tupac and Janet and Poetic Justice. Okay, so it's like you
Fire.
and it was like the spirits, the forces that work that I work with and that I think are part of this awakening process that so many of us are going through during these times, that all of us are participating in during these times, you know, they will get the truth to you in the flavor that you're most likely to consume it, or they will try. And then I think we each have an obligation to only serve and create and spread that truth in the way that's most authentic to us. Because why do you want to serve the light the way someone else would? Why aren't you going to do it the way? But that just brings us back to know yourself.
You are one of the greatest examples of that. And I want to say you inspired me so much more to just, like, I want to nail, like, one of my teachers, 20, talks about nailing it. And I don't know if there's like an answer, but just nailing your authenticity and being okay with that. I know I see a lot, you know, there's a ton of teachers out there that are very stoic and it's like
so serious.
And you all
dropping the S word, saying shaman this and shaman that.
And you're just like, and like, that's cool. And understanding that's cool for you, but I think everybody goes through that phase where they want to like, and just tell me about your, and it's like, yes, that ain't me.
You see it sometimes with I put up a post today about coming out and why I think it's important. But you know, the snake teaches us this, serpent teaches us this, Kundalini teaches us this, that like you grow a skin to inhabit that skin, and then it gets tight and itchy, and you got to rub up against it. And like to some extent, the whole world is going through that right now. The skin that we've been in is itchy and stanky and crusty, and we're a lot of fire coming in to sort of rub it off of ourselves, but then we're tender, like a baby. We got to get our bearings. We're like, oh my God, this is it. I figured it out. But I saw this in Wild Wild Country, right? With Osho and the Rajneeshis. You see it with cults all over the place, where if people don't sacrifice their power, if they're not giving you the power, then they're keeping the power for themselves, and eventually it will consume them. It's just, that's Libra, baby. That's justice. You know, that's true justice.
It happens every time. I ended up having, that's so funny you brought that up, because I had to let go a lot of judgment for that, because part of me was like, you know, how could you not see this? This is, but I totally, we all go through that. We all experience that. And, you know, that's so powerful. Like, yeah, noticing that's what that is.
There's only one teacher, right? We're all that, there's only one teacher. We are all stewards of the teaching. And I think, you know, just even to refer to the question you were asking about, like, how do we refine our self-expression? That for me, that's what the healing process actually is. It's a process of, as you say, in so many of the things that you put out, connecting to presence, connecting to your breath, showing up here, not being there, not being in the past, not being in the future, showing up there. But then the healing aspect of it, and why it's helpful to work with someone or to bounce off of ideas like yours, is that when you're in presence, humans have the ability to detect what's bullshit and what's not, but you have to be willing to look at it. You have to be willing to know yourself. And I think the process of expressing yourself authentically is a proposition in recognizing what's outmoded. I've been calling them since COVID trash habits. This is like the trash habit virus, where we hopefully are getting confronted with, in our isolation and separation, with habits that have been sustaining themselves for a long time, that if you look at them, you're like, ugh, I don't need this. This is throwing me out of alignment. And then hopefully you clear that and emerge with like a newer skin. But a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, and I was even reading some of this in the Neville Goddard stuff that you said. Oh, and also the one book you were telling me about. I want you to tell us about that in a second, but just about we cling to these old selves instead of being willing to shed those skins and be raw like a baby and start from the beginning, right? Tell me about your teachers. Tell me about a little bit about these teachers that you told me about.
Oh, gosh, I can't believe it. I'm literally about to have a call with him after we get off. Mr. 2020 is this, he's just such a weirdo in the best way. He studies, he's done like Native American teachings, Neville Goddard, but his main focus is Neville Goddard. And, you know, Neville Goddard is a Christian mystic. And I grew up in the South, and in the South. Oh, that's so cool. In the South, and as a kind of Christian kid, I really resonated with a lot of that. So Mr. 2020 at freeneville.com, he has a bunch of courses. One of them is really great. They're all really great, but his kind of intro is called Manifesting Mastery, and it's great because he teaches it in a very plain language way, but also it's because of, I guess, the nature of myself. I've studied, some Hindu, Buddhist, a lot of these other teachings. You at some point you start to notice the alignments and stuff, and the similarities between things, and just his way of doing things is so unique to him, and it really resonated with me authentically. And he gives away so much free stuff, but he's a great dude. Freeneville.com is great.
Freeneville.com. Just to share, it's a thing that I see a lot with clients, and even with myself. My whole path opened up after I realized that I was baptized Greek Orthodox, but my family was very practicing, but not really, they went to church, but they weren't super practicey. They weren't, they were believers or supplicants, but there wasn't a lot of theology or discussion about what the religion actually was. And I ended up finding a book about a Greek Orthodox Cypriot mystic named Daskalos that was called the Magus of Strovolos. And it healed a lot of things for me that helped to dissolve some of the rigidity of what I had actually been raised in or spoon-fed. And I see this with Catholics a lot. No tea, no shade. I'm surrounded by Catholics. My dad was Catholic, where a lot of religions have, and it's not just Christianity, a lot of religions have a very dogmatic and specific rules in place, some of which can be structures that support the truth, and some which can find the truth. So what I always encourage people is to seek the truth of their lineage of origin directly, and to study those scriptures and to study those teachings and to learn for yourself. Am I a literalist? Do I believe every word of the Bible? Is it an allegory? Is it a myth? Is it a sci-fi thing, right? Like the ancient alien stuff, and that is tremendously healing for people, because a lot of Catholics that I've worked with don't believe that they are actually allowed to have a personal relationship with Christ or a mystical relationship with Christ. It's supposed to be mediated. Okay, so I want to dive into your AuraPic just for a minute. I was drawing it while you were talking here. I thought it was already on the screen, but it popped up sort of later. But it's fun. We got just a few things to cover here with you. The first thing that came in was this beautiful pink swish along the right arm. This is the color of the ancestors. It's the color of the spirit guides, at least in my practice. These colors mean different things to everybody, but in this practice, color of the ancestors, color of spirit guides. And it's as though there's energy from on high, putting some mojo in your muscle, and pushing you, urging you to act, and even to some extent to get yours on behalf of them, on behalf of your spiritual guides, and especially your ancestors. So it feels like there are ancestors working through you that want what you want as much as you want it, and they want you to get it maybe even more than you want to get it. Okay, so that's good to know. Something to rely on. The next thing that came up for you was this powerful blue, deep indigo blue, sort of zigzag, kind of like a lightning bolt. But P.S. in remarking this, there's just very clean shapes with you until we get to this green in the middle, but green's a wonderful color, so we're going to talk about that last. But the blue is teaching. The blue is saying that, dude, and it's all on your left side. You a righty or a lefty?
Righty.
Great, perfect. So it's on your left side, your receptive side. These teachings are coming into you. They are blasting you on the regular. I know, we've talked about claircognizance and that kind of spiritual insight before, but what I would say to you that's a relief about this, dude, these teachings are not yours. These teachings are coming from the masters. They're coming through you, they're sparking through you, and I'm getting bumps from that. They don't want you to express these truths the way they would express these truths.
That's amazing.
The way you would.
That's amazing that you say that, because I definitely have been. It's something that I noticed, and it gave the exact relief that you're talking about, and it's just like it just took it off of it being about meat. It ain't about me.
It's even better because now, you know, in terms of claircognizance, if you're a claircognizant person who thinks really quick and just receives large amounts of information, it can be hard to pace yourself with that. But this is almost like the teaching comes, hits you on the head, comes in, and all you got to do is get your throat chakra into the right state of flow. I mean, you flow, you spit fire on your posts. That's what happens. So it's like, just ride that wave and try to enjoy that, because again, this purple around the head is the color you want to see around the head, and the red around the feet is the color you want to see around the feet. They're associated with those chakras. So this tells us if you suspect that you might be grounded now, you are. If you suspect that you might be open to spirit in a nicely sustainable and balanced way, you are. You're open and you're grounded. This brings us, does that make sense what we're saying?
Absolutely.
It's like, trust that. So then when we get to the middle part, this is the only place where we're like, okay, green is the color of harmonizing. It has to do with Libra and Venus and balance. And it's harmonizing through your solar plexus. So this even tells me, makes perfect sense with Mars retrograde, that the beginning of Mars retrograde started September 9th, was pinging some anger buttons in you and opening up control systems, dynamic. Oh, we were talking about this with your routine, right? This would even say that there was a voice in you that was going, you gotta run, you gotta run, you gotta run. And that you're moving through it, but I just got to acknowledge that, like, here, this is kind of bisecting you. So what that means is it's like you've faced the anger, you've faced the fire, you've faced the intensity, you've even called in harmony and balance around that, but that sort of lesson and experience hasn't quite healed, it hasn't quite finished. It makes sense because Mars retrograde is not over. So I would say you're probably going to be working with this dynamic until the 13th. The green being there, that's why I said it's a great color. It means you've tasted this harmony. There's something sustainable here. It's just about trusting this now and kind of seeing where it leads you. Thank you. And my guys are saying, okay, going back to that one other thing about when you practice going to listening to your heart and not just the bones, and saying, what do I actually need to do today? Do I need to run? And then the body and the heart, the intuition ultimately is like, whether it's body wisdom or heart wisdom, is like, go do this. There's a theory that when you listen to that, and when you have faith in that, even to use the F word, right? It sort of primes the pump, and it makes it easier for your intuition to guide you, not just in the name of keeping balance, which is what presence does, but to guide you in the direction of service, so that you're not forcing yourself to go down a road just because you think that's where it should go. But because you went to the park that day, your heart's open so that when the still small voice within you goes, hey, go to the left. Not only do you go there, but you meet someone there that you need to meet, or even more importantly, you meet someone there that needs to meet you. Okay, so I think this new space that you're entering in, just trust, dude, that the work will get more intense and more challenging. You do not need to make it harder on yourself, okay? It will, but it's gonna happen as you go with that flow, as opposed to sort of imposing structures upon that flow. You still need those structures to support you, but like we keep saying, it's a dance, it's a balance between perfect structure, perfect flow, perfect structure, perfect flow. And guess what? That changes with every breath.
Yes.
All right. That's your AuraPic. We're going to save that for you.
That was so cool.
And I'll send that to you tomorrow. We are nearing the end of our hour, which is insane. But we have a couple people that are hanging out that we're going to let into the room. We call this segment 1-900 Delish. Okay. Let's bring in Alex. Let's see. Hey. Oh, we're going to start this. Are you with us, Alexandra? You know what? Let's bring in Allison too, just because we'll just see who comes in first, and we'll get them both in here with us. Oh, we're going to turn their cameras on.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Oh my God. Hi. I'm getting my bath ready right now.
Oh my
So
God,
this
it's
is
you.
perfect.
It's so good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. You
for the
hang out,
nails.
Allison. We're going to bring you back in 1 second.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Alex.
No. I did say Alex. I was trying to get
Oh,
you
okay.
in, but I called in Allison just in case. So do
Okay.
you have a question for Edible Spirit or for David today? Anything you want to ask or get into?
David, I really related to what you said about changing structures in your life. I just changed my 2.5-hour Kundalini practice. Yeah, it was huge. And so like you saying that is just like, it's been crazy because that like it was starting to run me, like you said, and I just really related to that. I don't really have a question. I was more just going to see what's up and like what's for the highest good of everyone to hear.
I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that, because
Yeah.
I remember ages ago, this Kundalini practice was very important for you. And I've always talked shit about Kundalini practice because there are a lot of people who will say that if you focus on any chakra too long or too intensively, you can shoot the works. But Kundalini Vidya, right, the study of the science of the Kundalini, is an ancient practice. So theoretically, as long as you're working with an awesome teacher, you can do it safely, right? But so what was it maybe then, let me ask you the question then, Alex, what was it that made you realize that maybe this practice which supported and sustained you was no longer ideally calibrated for you?
You know what? I wasn't listening to myself. I was doing it because I felt I had to do it. And I was doing it to like avoid myself. I'm gonna like call tea on me. Like I was like kind of tapping out of life a bit to do it. And it just became very weighted. I kind of like put a religious connotation around it where like I had to do it and I'm like a bad person and my world will collapse. And it hasn't.
That's beautiful. I mean, David, I don't know, is there anything you want to share with Allison? Anything you have to say about this space? Yeah.
No, I'm saying that's glorious. Thank you for sharing that, because that means something to me, especially that idea of that sort of like intense practice. I totally resonate and understand like when it's like, yeah, it's kind of, it feels like it's kind of running you, and it's that should. The shoulds are always, you're like, oh, okay, let's recalibrate. So yeah, thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you so much for coming in and for tuning in. It's so good to see your face.
So good to see yours. I love you. I'm loving these so much.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much. All right, we'll see you really soon then.
All right.
Okay, let's go. Okay. Cool. So let's bring in Allison really quick and just give them a hey. Let's see. Hey, Allison. Hi. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Do you have a question for either of us? Anything you want to talk about or get into today?
Yeah, I have two things. First of all, what you were saying about reconnecting to sort of your background and to the religion you come from. I was raised Jewish, very reformed, and I find that every time I really struggle, I actually bring Judaism back to my practice. I go back to the niguns and the melodies and the songs that I was raised on for healing and protection, and it's really powerful. I also really like David's videos and how it's all about like not only calling in, but it's about, it's not about calling out, it's about calling in. It's like, hey, you're doing that thing, stop doing that thing. Like it was just like, yeah, I felt that. I've been in a really weird place since retrograde started. I've had a connection that I had magic that I'd worked over a year ago that sort of manifested in a way that I'm not sure. All of my readings are going back and forth between you're being really reckless and you need to just trust this process. And I'm having trouble getting a clear read on it. It involves a past partner that things ended with really.
Everything I'm feeling with you is up around here, around the heart and the high heart. What I would offer, and what I'm feeling is that it's almost like the energy that you sent out has come back, and now it's a question of what to do with it. I mean, just in the vein of the conversation we've been talking about, I would think about it in terms of energetics and in terms of what am I applying my energy towards, right? And I would say it feels to me like there's almost a surplus of energy coming to you that's going to want to spill over, and everything in my head is going, give it away, give it away, give it away, give something away, give something away. So it feels to me like there needs to be an energetic purge or like a keg tap of your high heart, so you know what, it really could be as simple as, especially with the read of Trust the Process, make sure that you're volunteering some time in service of someone or something else, even if it's just like a day of phone banking or doing something like that, because it almost feels like, yeah, sure, this energy is going to go somewhere, it's trust the process, but I don't think you're being reckless. I think you just have to focus the energy. And if you're obsessing over what happened with that old magic that you put out, it's not necessarily keeping your third eye trained on where you're headed and what you want to do with the results of the fruits of your labor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what's interesting too is I set this really heavy intention of this person is only coming back into my life as a way for us both to heal. It was a very, very, very bad process for both of us. It was very triggering, very deeply upsetting. And I set the purpose to heal, and now there's an entirely different aspect of the connection, and it's a little overwhelming.
Wow. Do you have any insight into what we're talking about here? Anything you want to share, David?
No, honestly, I would say first what you said. You got me here and here right now. So I was like, that might just be the thing, because it definitely feels like that. Like I know whenever I have things like that kind of come in a little later down the line, a lot of the question is like, why? And I always want to add a ton of meaning to things. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? But I love what you said, which was just being with what is right now. Like what's happening right now and where is that energy going to right now, and being okay with what is developing. And I found personally, whenever I've done that, the results of what's happened after that has always been, I wouldn't say better, but just interesting. A lot of the time for me, there's that limiting idea that like I want to limit it and I want to know and I have to know, and just being okay with not knowing and just becoming more curious is always it served me incredibly well.
Beautiful. To piggyback on that too, I would say like call in a new vision, do some, I don't even necessarily think it's about doing some new magic. I think it's just about focusing on something new on the horizon, that you're pouring your will and your creativity and all of this energy that's coming back to you, and that should be freed up by the healing process that you've invoked. And then also, because we come to, I guess the full moon is not until later in the month, so this new moon would be a great time to set a new intention. And then I would say once we get to that Taurus full moon at the end of the month on Halloween, veil's very thin, then maybe pause and look at where this relationship has developed to by then, and decide what things, because it's a full moon in Taurus, what things you're releasing that you don't want to fuck with anymore, that you don't need in the relationship between you, but like maybe give it a little space to breathe. I just think I keep coming back, exactly as David's saying too, so like you're clocking that your magic is working. So now where are you going to focus the flow of energy that comes out as a result of this?
And it's a magic that I thought wasn't working. I thought it was like, well, this is never going to be a thing. I'm never going to hear from this person again. I guess I'll just move on. And then all of a sudden it's like, nope.
It always works when you let it go. It always works when you stop thinking about it, and all the shit falls into place.
Yeah.
That's attachment. All right. Well, thank you. We're going to wrap
And
it
thank
up
you.
here. So good to see you.
Good
We'll
to
see
see
you
you as
next
well.
time. Bye, hon. Okay. Okay. Well, that was fun. We're nearing the end. What's your favorite food? What do you like to eat?
Oh, golly, favorite food. Honestly, I eat pancakes every single day. Since I was a child, it was the first thing I learned how to make. So yeah, I eat pancakes.
I wanted to know. I just wanted to know. And then, I mean, the last thing we like to do here is we call this yumminess, where we talk about something on this earth that is making you lift up and out and above. So something very earthly that is making you feel divine, something from this plane that pops you onto the next level.
Right now, it has been nature. And I know I feel that's a, whatever kind of a cliche, but for me right now, being in nature has been one of the most healing things that's ever happened to me. And it's just, I have this hike that I started going on during COVID, and I found it to be quite secluded. And I noticed I was going to it and I was making this content and doing this flow thing, feeling really good. And I started going to it as a means to get stuff. I want to get information. And I came back from the hike one day and I noticed I was exhausted. I was like, why am I so exhausted? Just mentally drained from like top to bottom. Just, I felt bad. And I'm like, I should feel bad after a hike. I went back and I noticed, oh, I'm going with this intention to think. I'm just going and just allowing my mind to go to all these, yes, let's get to the end. Let's get to the end. And so I picked another day and went back and I'm like, I'm going to take as much time as I want and just meander and go slow and just be with nature and stop and just be. And that, I swear I've been on the hike, maybe before then, maybe like 10 or 15 times. It opened up in a way that I'd never seen. I thought I was in another dimension. I mean, you are in another dimension, but like it opened up and it was like, oh, this is where the fairies live now.
It's perfect, and it actually piggybacks. Mine is my octopus teacher, right? This Netflix doc. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
blew my mind, because that was it. I wrote it down before, so I love that you said this because it's the same thing, and it was all about pacing, because this guy goes to the same square footage of, or cubic footage of the ocean in South Africa and meets this octopus. But in order to find the octopus and track the octopus and ultimately reach the octopus's frequency to then realize what a fucking brilliant creature being this is, he's got to do a ritual of going every single day and ultimately expecting nothing but being aware of everything, every single thing, without leaning in too hard. And just to tie it back to the body and metaphysics, right? This is the heart's job. The heart, as the six-pointed star, as above, so below, upward triangle, downward triangle, is one of the glyphs for the heart chakra, right? It tells you where the sweet spot is. So it's rarely your head that says slow down. It's usually your heart, your intuition that notices I'm either projecting forward, or, you know, the root chakra is often connected to the past, second chakra connected to past emotions, feelings that you felt before, memories, past conflicts in the solar plexus. So if you go too far into those forward-leaning centers, you're going to miss something and be like, oh, whatever, it's a kelp forest. But if your heart's like, bro, you're losing it, you're exhausted, this is not working, you check your pace, you get into your body, you breathe, you find that balanced state, and then suddenly you're aware of things that you didn't even know you could be aware of, right? So that was a big lesson that I got this week. And a really good friend of mine too was talking about the pace of capitalism as being a thing which keeps us in that forward moving flow. And one of the reasons why we do lunar astrology, even though we used to talk shit about it because it was like the moon moves too much, it moves very dependably. And so if you synchronize yourself with the lunar calendar or with the solar calendar, you're orienting your earthly body to a celestial body, which I think, like the Gregorian calendar, is like a huge tool of manipulation. What the fuck is daylight savings time?
Right.
It's like, it keeps you just left of center, just left of being in the awareness of your body clock and of the natural flows of things. So let's take a deep breath together with everybody. Yeah, you see, you can even see it in an exchange like this, right? We get to feed off of each other and it builds that energy up, and it's very exciting, and hopefully for everybody it's fun to watch. But try to make a really important decision, you know, fresh off of this stream where we're like, you know, but your heart's always right there. It's always right there for you to drop into and take advantage of. Well, thank you, my friend, for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was absolutely magical. You're magical, but this is magical. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. You do me a great honor by being here. Everybody follow at Photovational Speaker. Oh, we didn't get to talk about your Discord, but keep an eye on their Discord. They're building something unique and magical there. Both David and I are going to continue pumping as much consciousness and light and healing as we can through these fiber optic cables. So stay tuned. I'm sure we will be back together again. But thank you for this moment.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Okay. We're going to go just with a little bit of this.
The edible spirit.
Ah.